Hello, and welcome to another edition of Pelham School District Today. Today I have a group of professional educators from Pelham Elementary School here to talk a little bit about support strategies and interventions. All right, so we have our principal, Tom Adamakis. We have our reading specialist, Amy Johansson.
Hi.
We have our assistant principal, Jessica Van Rankin, and our other assistant principal, Michelle Vager. And then we have one of our special education teachers and our special education team leader, Lauren Hall. She's also our kindergarten ABC teacher. So she wears a lot of hats, and a lot of it has to do with support strategies and interventions. So thank you for joining us this morning. And so why don't we talk a little bit, Tom, I'll ask you. So how does Pelham Elementary School support students struggling in math and reading?
Well, first, thank you for having us to be able to share this information. But PES supports struggling students in many ways, and that's the purpose and the topic of this discussion today, so we can get this information out there. There might be a lot of questions surrounding some of the jargon that is used. First, data needs to be collected. The classroom teachers are responsible for taking care of that through their daily instruction and assessments. And the struggling students need to be identified.
And so we do that by looking at their data.
Right.
Okay.
After they get to know the students initially at the beginning of the year, they collecting through instruction and various strategies and whatever the assessments reveal, we can determine are they struggling, are they on level, below or above average, and that's all documented and brought to our RTI team to determine, well, what are the next steps going to be.
So now there's one of those educational jargon words. So what exactly is RTI and who facilitates that? I'm going to ask Amy because she's actually somebody who facilitates the majority of our RTI stuff, I think.
So at PES, as a reading specialist, I'm responsible for facilitating it. And what RTI is, it stands for Response to Intervention, and it's an approach that we use to target those struggling students. We use the data to find their area of need, come up with a plan to target that area of need, and as we're implementing the intervention that we deem fit based on the data, we then monitor their progress through data collection every 2 weeks. At the end of a 6-week cycle, we look at that data, determine if the intervention was effective, and if it was, we either continue with it if it needs to be continued, we discontinue it if the concern has been resolved, or we look into a new intervention if it wasn't effective.
So can you describe what intervention is and maybe give some examples, Michelle?
Well, we have a lot of programs in the building that are used for special education and other things teachers pick up on the side. So we have a lot of reading interventions. One is Foundations. That's a program that's used for phonics in K and 1 right now. And there's an intervention package that will reinforce that at the lower grades. We have Reading A to Z, which is an online magazine, if you will, that supplies all kinds of reading information, whether it be comprehension, decoding, that kind of thing. And all the teachers have a license for that. We have a reading intervention program that goes along with our Reading Street program. We have TLC for Words, which is a picture way of remembering high-frequency words.
Okay.
The kids really like that.
So talk to me a little bit about high-frequency word. What is a high-frequency word?
So you used to hear about sight words.
Mm-hmm.
High-frequency words do include sight words, which are words that you can't decode, but high-frequency encompasses all the words that are used mostly in the English language. So to, and, the, those kinds of words are used all the time. They're high frequency, and so children need to learn those. They may be able to decode them, but they should be automatic for them.
And as we're building early literacy skills, if they learn those high frequency words, clearly that makes it much easier for them to improve their fluency as well as their comprehension.
Right. And they do need to decode. However, high frequency words are a huge percentage of the words that we read. We also have Visualizing and Verbalizing, which is a program to help children with reading comprehension. Mm-hmm. And it's all about making pictures in your head as you read. And for some students, they're not making those visuals, and that's a huge issue. So we have to find a way to help them do that. We have a Broading reading program that helps students decode multisyllabic words. Mm-hmm. It's kind of a best-known secret kind of program, but it really works for certain kids. And then we have some math programs. We have Envisions that goes along with it's another intervention that goes along with our regular math program. Touch Math, one of my favorites. It's a hands-on math program where the students actually touch the numbers. So it's a kinesthetic piece. Really, I've seen it work really well with kids who don't remember their facts. We have math facts the fun way, which is stories. The little stories that help you remember, 2 and 3 is 5, but 2 is a house and 3 is a dog, and there's some story that goes with it. So that's kind of helpful. We have Sharma Math. We have Dr. Sharma, who's, I think, pretty well known for his math techniques, using playing cards, Cuisenaire rods. So again, that multisensory visual for kids. And then we have a program called Clock Math, which is a kinesthetic program involving movement. So, the kids make 3 o'clock and that kind of thing. It's movement around. So those are just some of the programs we have, but those are the most widely known and used. And I would say most known to special ed and interventionists, but those are things that we share with the classroom teachers when we talk about interventions for the kids.
So I'm going to back up for a minute. We talked about how we identify students that need some intervention. We talked about what the interventions are. Then we progress monitor them, which we're checking in to make sure this is working. And then you said that if it's working and we've resolved the issue, then we discontinue that. Do we see that regularly? Do we have students that have an issue, we do an intervention, and then they don't need it anymore? Or
Yeah, it does. It definitely does occur. So it works for our kids. We see that success. We see them improving.
And it's in brain research and things like that, advocate that the sooner we intervene, the less likely it is to develop into a major long-term issue down the road, and the earlier in their childhood that we intervene, the more likely they are to end up with less concerns later on. So that's part of this whole piece and why we're so big on RTI. We actually have RTI at all 3 of our schools, but it did start first at the elementary school, and that being the primary reason. So how do you decide who needs intervention and what intervention will be done?
Well, the teachers progress monitor the students at certain intervals, and they determine what the student needs. From there, the classroom teacher brings their information to RTI, the team, because we have a number of people on the team, and again, we decide, why don't you try this intervention? Now, all that stuff is recorded, so if that intervention was tried before, it's in the folder somewhere. So we know that didn't work, we'll try something different. So once we decide on a strategy, then we set up the program for the teacher, and this is what you're going to do, and do it in fidelity for the 6 weeks, so that you don't go a week and say, oh, that didn't work. Try it for the whole 6 weeks, and then again, bring it back. We take a look at it. Did it work? Did it not work? Is it the right program, but it needs to be tweaked? Is it not the right program at all? And then it continues like that until we find the program that best meets that child's needs.
So when does this happen? Because you're talking kids go to school, they got a full day worth of instruction. How do we fit this stuff in?
Well, interventions take place during various times. First and foremost, the interventions take place in the classroom with the teacher, differentiating their instruction based on student needs in the class. As they get to know the kids, they can adjust their teaching based on those student levels and what needs do they have. Is it in math or reading? And our teachers have gone through a train the trainer model to learn strategies to differentiate their instruction. If they require some reinforcement, some enhancement and enrichment, each grade level has a 40 to 45 minute intervention block built into their daily schedule. And what's supposed to occur there is targeting that instruction to meet those needs. If a student is below average in some areas, then they need something to intervene to help bring them up. And on the other hand, if a student is on level or above, then teachers need to develop some enrichment activities or some enhancement to further push them along.
And we have additional staff at those times that are available to help provide some of these interventions.
Right.
So some of those staff would be,
As far as pushing in for some Title I, we have our reading specialist. We have our special services folks that also assist based on what needs a student needs, our literacy tutors and our math tutor.
So when designing a master schedule, it's important to really kind of target those times during the day. So really what happens at Pelham Elementary School is we have intervention times at each grade level, and those people are free during those times to focus strictly on that particular grade level at that particular time because they have intervention time.
Right.
So what's the end goal of RTI, and how does it correlate to special education, Amy?
So the ultimate goal always is to have every child making adequate progress, returning to core instruction without the need for any kind of intervention. Unfortunately, that doesn't always happen. So what will happen is if we find that a student is not responding adequately to quality instruction and quality interventions that we've provided, then we start to think about, well, maybe we need to refer the student for an evaluation to see if they qualify for special education services.
Okay. So the term pre-referral process has been used a lot. So Lauren, I'm going to turn to you. Can you explain it and how it works with the RTI process?
Sure. So the pre-referral process is something we use in the special ed department more often than RTI, but it is very similar. It has the same process. Sometimes it consists of the same team. The process starts with someone having a concern for a student, whether it's math or reading or sometimes other things. It's brought to the table, and that could be from anybody. It could be from a teacher, a parent, someone that knows the student. It's brought to the team, and the team is kind of assembled. So it could be related service providers, it could be a special educator, it could be the reading tutor, it could be administration. Obviously, it includes the teacher. After that, we design a plan, an intervention plan, just like the RTI process. It just might consist of a little bit of a different team. We create an intervention process, intervention plan, and then it's done over 6 weeks. It's reviewed and discussed. Does it need to be changed? Very similar to the RTI process. It's reviewed and discussed, and then that happens again, twice. If it's not successful in 2 rounds, we refer them to the special education team, and they see if they need evaluations, just like Amy said.
So what does a parent do if they have a concern then?
The best thing to do as a parent when you have a concern is to contact the teacher first. Contact the teacher because they may have something going already. They may have already seen the problem and contacted Amy and already have started something. Teachers can always be contacted through their email. That's the easiest way, I would say. All of the teachers' emails are on the website, but it's always the first letter of their first name and the last name for the whole district at pelhamsd.org. After that, they can serve as like a vehicle to all the other resources we have at the elementary school. And sometimes outside the elementary school we can do too. So, teacher's the best part.
And the pre-referral process is designed to provide students with intervention without requiring them to go through the entire special education process, because that process can be daunting to the student, to the parent, and if it's not needed when just an intervention could have solved the issue. And part of that pre-referral process also helps us refine, if they do ultimately have to go to the special education process, helps us refine what the true issue is.
Right.
So there's a much more targeted, specific plan for the student. So, Jessica, what if there's a concern with science, social studies, or behavior? Is there a process for that?
Well, science and social studies is really integrated into reading and math. It's a lot of reading, looking at data, charts. So we encompass everything when we look at the reading and math information for RTI. For behavior, we actually have a whole separate program that involves our behavior specialist, our school psychologist, our guidance counselor, the special education team member, and it's a process that the teacher starts. It always starts with the teacher if there's an issue with the behavior in a classroom. So we go from there.
So really, if a student's showing areas of concern either to the parent, to the teacher, to anybody, they can be brought to the RTI team or the pre-referral process, but the place to go is to the classroom teacher. So, well, I want to thank you for coming, talking to us about response to intervention and the supports and services that are available to the students at Pelham Elementary School. And thank you for joining us for another edition of Pelham School District Today.